meeting introductions. So why don't we go ahead and do meeting introductions, and I'll trust somebody there. We can stop sharing our screen right now so we can see everybody's face except mine. And then we can go ahead and do meeting introductions. I'm the task force facilitator, and I think our task force, and my name is Celeste Landry, and I think our task force has the record for the most problems with technology getting started.
I would agree. Celeste, could you possibly speak up a bit?
I can speak up a bit, yes.
Great.
I increased my volume on my computer, and that helps too.
Okay. I'm Beth Hendricks. I'm the executive director of the League of Colorado. I'll lead the introductions, okay?
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Neil.
Hi, I'm Neil McBurnett. I've been active on voting methods since the 1990s, and working in particularly with proportional representation and proportional approval voting, and been active in the Boulder League, where we have a voting methods team, and I do a lot with election integrity. Auditing of elections. Next.
Great. Frank?
Good evening. I'm Frank Atwood. I'm involved with the Approval Voting Party and an advocate for approval voting and eager to be supportive of Celeste.
Thank you. Chris?
Chris Baum, and I am also Approval Voting Party member and advocate.
Betsy?
Betsy McBride from Boise, used to be in Arapahoe County. My interest is learning as much as I can, and more lately trying to figure out the messages that we share with voters to help them decide that these reforms would be a good idea. Our ballot initiative went down in flames like many others, and trying to figure out how to bring the public along is what I'm interested in now.
Right. Thanks. Jen?
Hi, I'm Jeanne Cleland. Along with Celeste, I'm a co-leader of the voting methods team in the Boulder County League. I'm also a math professor at CU Boulder, and I study redistricting, elections, and I've also been participating in the coalition working on the Colorado Voting Rights Act.
Which
Jerry.
is the topic today.
Hi, I'm Jerry Feaster. I'm a new member in the Larimer County group, just kind of getting started. And I joined you tonight because I'm interested in alternative voting methods. I was disappointed that we didn't get anywhere with that in this last election. And so I'm just kind of here lurking tonight to hear what the group's about. And I'll probably go dark so I can cook dinner while I'm listening. So
Understand.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Britta?
Yeah, I'm a member in Boulder. I drop in on voting methods from time to time when it gets my attention, and I'm looking forward to learning more tonight.
Barbara?
Yes, Barb Winery. I'm on the state board as co-director of voter services. Also, I'm coordinator of voter services of the Greeley-Weld County League. And I'm always interested in learning more about the alternative voting methods. So that's why I'm here.
Mary?
I'm Mary Carher. I live in Loveland, and I'm with the Larimer League. And I, pop in on these meetings when I can. I tend to get kind of overextended with too many subgroups. But I'm very interested in this one. And in 2025, Fort Collins has its first experience with ranked choice voting for mayor and city council if there's at least 3 or more candidates running for any of the offices. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that all is implemented and just keeping up with you all when I can on what you're doing.
Great, thanks. Jeff?
I'm Jeff Withers, member of the Denver League, and I just am like a camp follower. I'm sort of trying to pick up crumbs that fall from the table of information about, so I can learn about some of these things. And I'm relatively ignorant about all sorts of alternative voting methods.
But expert on many other things, Jeff. Tony?
I am a member of the Denver League and I am a liaison to a variety of state task forces and LAC committees. So that's mainly why I'm here, but always interested in what's going on in different areas.
Gaithia? You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I'm Gaithia Weiss. I'm in Longmont. And like Neil and Celeste, I've been active in the Boulder County League's voting methods group. And with Neil was involved in some election security issues in the past with the National Convention. And very interested in this topic and improving things for voting in our state.
Excellent. Dwight?
Hi, I'm Dwight Shellman. I think I'm a member of the Boulder League. At least I was most recently. And I've been sort of informally participating with Neil and Celeste and others in this group. I also work for the elections division of the Secretary of State's office.
That's why your name's familiar. Okay. Thanks so much. Back to Celeste.
Great. Let's go ahead and start sharing the screen again.
Oh.
Neil or whoever's doing that, or Jeff. And
are you all good,
there's some
Celeste? I'm
upcoming-
sorry, I do need to step away. Are you all good, do you think?
Yep.
Who's
we just need a host.
instead of you?
I'll make Jeff host. Does anybody else want to be host? All right, Jeff is host.
You didn't ask me if I wanted to be host.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I just appointed you.
No,
How very
thank you.
undemocratic.
Okay.
We appreciate you, Jeff.
Yes, we do. Okay, thank you all.
Do we have the slide with upcoming events on it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll talk through them while you get it up.
Yes.
Tomorrow, the La Plata County League is going to have a presentation on proportional representation and single transferable vote, and I sure hope that my Zoom technology works better tomorrow than today. On the 25th of January, there is the statewide league legislative conference from 10 to 2. It's on Zoom. And that should be a great meeting. The Colorado Voting Rights Act will be discussed. A couple of vacancy reform bills will be discussed. And I hope you can all make it. Let me know when the slide comes up.
It's up.
It's up.
Okay. So every month, Share Vote Canada has a PR 101 webinar where PR means proportional representation, and I encourage people to check that out just because every exposure to proportional representation, you always learn more, or at least I always do. February, we have program planning for the local leagues. And if there are any positions you want changed or studies you want to adopt, you want to start, that's a good time to bring that up. And then in March, we're going to show the film Counted Out, which is a film about math and democracy. It will be shown in Larimer County and in Boulder County. Next slide, please.
Okay, there it is.
The next meeting date is February 10th. Normally it would be the 17th, but that's President's Day, and we're trying really hard not to meet on holidays. It's same time of the month. Okay, now we'll go to the next slide, which is our agenda. This comes up this slide comes up before every new agenda item. And at 6:30, we're going to take a special 5-minute break because there is a celestial event outside. And so I want to go see it, and some of you may want to go see it too. The moon is going to pass in front of Mars. And so an hour before that and an hour after that is a good time to see that little red speck of Mars coming close to the moon. So there's a whole slide on it. Around 6:30 or so, we'll take a 5-minute break. And I'll ask you, Jeff, to make sure that slide is the one that's up. So if people come into the meeting or they stepped away and they come back, they know what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay, next slide, please. We'll talk about action items.
Yep, there it is.
So Neil and Ruth Grace Wong from the League in California are working on creating a proportional approval voting option. Neil, do you want to say anything about this?
Just that I talked, or I sent a message to Ruth to try to get an update, and she's been busy, and we're going to put a meeting together in the next week or two to try to figure out how to make progress. And I'm going to put in the chat a link to the summary that we put together last summer of some of the steps and options involved in that, but not really anything more than that to present right now.
Okay, and for those of you who are not familiar with approval voting, I know there are a couple serious approval voting advocates on this call, but that's on the bottom left of the screen. There is a picture of an approval voting ballot, and the way it works is it doesn't matter how many people you're electing. You can vote for as many candidates as you would support for one of those seats or that single seat. So it's a very positive sort of approval-based voting method and very simple to tabulate by machine. So next slide.
Okay.
We had an action item to write a letter to the Colorado legislature, and we have a draft, but maybe we don't need it now because, well, let's back up a second. The letter was to lobby the legislature to pass enabling legislation for more voting methods, especially single transferable vote, STV, which is also known as PRCV, proportional ranked choice voting. It's allowed in Colorado statutes for municipalities and special districts, but right now the county clerks are not required or expected to help run that election, and cities don't really want to do this a ranked voting election on their own. And you can see in the top left there's an example of a ranked voting ballot. You mark your first choice, and then you mark a different second choice if you have a second choice, and mark a different third choice, and so on. And I think most people are familiar with that. Let's go to the next slide.
Celeste,
So,
oh, you're going to continue with the letter.
yeah, yeah. So,
send it.
So the reason I think that the letter is not needed right now is because we have two bills this session that are explicitly calling out for proportional voting methods. One of them specifically for single transferable vote. So if that bill passes, there will have to be some Secretary of State rules written up in order for that bill to get implemented. And Dwight, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't think it would hurt for us to write a letter, but we're all busy, and I've been working to get the bills to be written well, and we'll talk about both of those bills in this meeting. That's the next thing on the agenda.
So I haven't seen the bill, Celeste, but I had raised my hand anyway, just because what sort of enabling legislation are you wanting for STV? It's already fully authorized by Colorado law.
It's authorized, but we had to pass House Bill 21-1071 to enable coordinated elections with using instant runoff voting. So my understanding is the county clerks can say, we don't want to coordinate your election to a city if they want to.
That's true. The thing I find ironic about all of this legislation is that nobody expects the jurisdictions adopting the darn voting system to understand how to implement it. And I don't understand that, but that's just me. So, okay, well, we'll talk about that. I mean, it is true that the only alternative voting method currently supported by Colorado's certified voting systems is instant runoff voting, because we adopted requirements for those, the Secretary of State did, and we tested the Dominion system, which is used by 62 counties, against those standards. They are satisfied. Clear Ballot is bringing forward a new version of its voting system with IRV capability. And that covers the other 2 counties that use only that system. So I guess the process will be, we would need to adopt requirements for and test Colorado's voting systems to ensure the accuracy of STV in addition to instant runoff voting. Okay, I understand.
I don't know if we'll ever get the cities to understand the voting. They don't.
Well, then why are they adopting them?
Concern. What's that?
Why are they adopting them if they don't understand them?
What I mean is, there's a lot to do to run an election. They don't want to learn about curing signatures and sending out voting, having up-to-date voting lists. They want the county clerk to take care of all that. And
okay,
the tabulation, yes, they should understand that, but yeah.
Okay.
But there's a lot to do. They might not want to understand the risk limiting audits. And I don't know if you can expect or any kind of audit that ends up happening. So anyway, we can discuss this offline.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Quick question, Dwight, do you know if Clear Ballot is also implementing STV?
I do not offhand know if they are, if the system that they're coming forward with includes STV, but I can find out, I think, fairly quickly.
That would be great.
And we know that Dominion works well with approval voting because they've been using it in St. Louis. And but it hasn't been certified in Colorado. But
yeah, I personally don't see a difference for approval voting. Approval voting just becomes a vote for however many choices there are in a race, right? That's the essential method. You can vote for as many candidates as you like, and the candidate with the most votes wins. So I personally don't see a need to adopt requirements for approval voting and then certify the voting systems to them. So I think approval voting is a smaller lift.
We like small lifts. We'll take big lifts if they're good. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So one of the 2 bills that we're focusing on today is the Colorado Voting Rights Act. That's Senate Bill 25-001. And that 001 means that it's the first bill. And usually a bill with 001 is a big deal bill. So you can surmise that this is a big deal bill and that the legislature, or at least the dominant caucus, is going to really want this bill to pass. Let's go to the next slide. On here, you've got the link to the bill if you want to go and read it yourself. It would add Article 47, the Colorado Voting Rights Act, to Title I of our Colorado Revised Statutes. That Title I is elections. And
There we go.
Dwight Shellman carries this around with him. Big, thick volume. So from page 12 of the bill, there are these lines, and if anybody else would like to read it so I can save my voice, they can go
Okay,
for
I
it.
can do that. Alternative method of election, unquote, means a method of electing candidates to a legislative body of the state or a political subdivision other than a winner-take-all at-large method of election or a district-based method of election, including but not limited to cumulative voting, limited voting, mixed member proportional representation, party list proportional representation, and instant runoff voting, spelling in context, whichever that's referred
Okay,
to.
we'll get to that. I didn't know that's what that meant.
Yeah.
Okay, on the next slide, these are all multi-winner voting methods that are listed in Senate Bill 2501. So on the next slide, there's a graphic showing an image of proportional representation, what it means and what it doesn't mean. So the top circle, the top pie chart shows that 40% of the voters like the polka dots, 38% like the green stripe, and 22% like the orange plaid. If this were a plurality block election, then all those 40% would all vote for their 5 favorite candidates, and there might only be 5 polka dot candidates. And if they did that, they voted cohesively, then those 5 polka dot candidates would all win. But that's because 40% it's called first past the post or plurality. Whoever gets the most votes wins. Those 5 candidates would get the most votes. That's not a very proportional result. On the right-hand side, you can see a proportional result. The polka dots would get 2 seats, the green stripe would get 2 seats, and the orange plaid would get 1. So the question is, how do we let every sizable group elect someone who represents their views? And the answer is, don't use a winner-take-all method. And the way you use it, you change it so it's not winner-take-all. If you either change the ballot marking or the tabulation process. So if you go to the next slide, we'll look right now at cumulative voting and limited voting. These are semi-proportional voting methods, and they're semi-proportional rather than proportional because they allow for more wasted votes than a true proportional voting method. So the next slide shows a cumulative voting ballot. The full first 2 columns of the ballot are on the right-hand side, very small, hard to read. But some parts of it are cut and put on the left, and the directions say vote for none, 1, 2, or 3 candidate or candidates of your choice. So you can vote for up to 3. And then if you look at the list of names, there are, I think, 9 different names, but each name is repeated 3 times. So you could vote for Danny South 3 times, or you could vote for Danny South twice and then give 1 more vote to Thomas Warren, the 3rd, or any combination, but you can only fill in 3 bubbles for that contest. And this gives This is used a lot in the South. This is Amarillo, Texas, May 2017 ballot. And this is used a lot in the South in order to comply with the Voting Rights Act. And we'll talk a little bit more about this 2 slides later. So let's go to the next slide. Or does anybody have questions about cumulative voting that they want to ask right now?
I'm curious why 3?
They're electing 3 seats, so you get 3 votes. Like right now,
Oh.
if you're,
Oh, there are
if you,
3 seats are open.
3 seats to fill. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that.
yeah, and then if there were 5 seats to fill, you would get to vote for 5. And then
Okay, thank you.
if
That
you
makes
can
sense.
see the second contest, there are 4 seats to fill, so each name is written 4 times, but it's
Well,
quite small, so maybe you can't see
I
it.
see.
Okay, in the next slide, we talk about cumulative voting. I'm sorry, limited voting. And in this voting method, voters have fewer votes in the ballot contest than there are seats to fill. In cumulative voting, you got the same number, but you got to vote for a candidate more than once if you really supported them. In limited voting, you can vote for 2 candidates, but 3 will be elected. Or they could do some other number, but always you vote for fewer candidates than the number who are elected. So let's go on to the next slide. We're back at our pie chart. And the left-hand side, if a group of like-minded voters makes up 20% of the electorate, like maybe in the South, they're worried about suppression of Black voters. If Black voters make up 20% of the electorate and you're electing 5 seats, then if that group of voters puts all of their cumulative voting votes on their one preferred candidate, that candidate is definitely going to get elected because they'll get 20% of the vote, and that's how it works. They may end up getting more than they needed, more votes than they needed, and the extra votes are considered, you could call them wasted, but at least they get some representation, which they didn't get under the plurality block voting method. Do you all see how that works for cumulative voting?
Celeste, how is this different from bullet voting?
It's this, well, bullet voting only works if everybody yes, it works the same as bullet voting for that 20% group. Well, it doesn't work exactly the same way because the 40%, they don't have to bullet vote. They can vote for all their candidates, and all the candidates will get 40%. And meanwhile, the 20% electorate will put all 20% of their bullet votes on that one candidate who will get 20% of the vote. 20% of the vote, is that the right? That's not the right way to say it because it's multi. 20% of the ballots will support that one candidate. And 20% is still less than 40%. So it helps some, but it doesn't. And people do that. You bring up an excellent point because that's how people try to work around plurality block voting. They say, I'm just going to vote for this one candidate. It's going to make my vote count for more. And then they don't use any extra votes for candidates who might be winning anyway. They try to weight their votes by just voting for one candidate. If anybody else is better at explaining this, please go ahead.
I understand.
So that's cumulative voting. So for instance, in La Plata County, the Republicans supported the Republican candidate in a recent, in their district, okay, let me slow down a second. there was a candidate elected in the recent La Plata County Commissioner election. He won countywide, but when they looked at the votes, they noticed that in the district where he resides, Republicans supported the Republican got more votes than he did. He's the Democrat, but he's not elected by district. He's not elected by party proportional representation. He's elected countywide in the choose one voting method. If they had had cumulative voting and they had elected in a multiple county commissioners, I think the Republicans, if they have 1/3 of the electorate, they would easily have been able to elect a Republican. But that's not what happened, and so they're quite unhappy right now, according to a news article I read.
Yeah.
If you look at the right side of the slide, in limited voting, the largest group, so the white polka dot, can't put all their votes on all the candidates that they want to win the seats. If they're electing 5 seats, they can't vote for 5. They're only allowed to vote for 2 or 3 or 4. They're not allowed to vote for all 5. So a candidate preferred by a smaller group then has a chance to win a seat, because you can't dominate all 5 seats. So these are not guaranteed to get you great proportional representation, but they're called semi-proportional because they help minority groups of whatever demographic. It could be renters, it could be women, it could be a racial group, it could be an ideological group. It doesn't have to be racial necessarily when I say minority here. Okay, are we ready for the next slide?
Yes, there it is.
Okay, so we talked about cumulative voting and limited voting, and